Once you have a prototype, it's time to see if your rules actually work. But testing a prototype isn't just about testing the rules. It's also about seeing whether your game is fun, understandable, and engaging for the players. Sarah Varelli, the development director here at the MIT Game Lab, is here to tell us more about testing prototypes.
Hi, I'm Sarah Varelli with the MIT Game Lab, and I'm here to talk about testing your games and your prototypes. Now, you can't make games without testing them, either playing them yourself to see how it works so far, or playing them with friends to see how they react to your game. The development cycle is pretty simple. Prototype, test, revise, and test again. Without testing, game designers can't iterate, revise, and adapt their game ideas. So in this segment, we're going to talk about, well, we've already talked about why you test, but we're going to talk about what you need to learn from your testing and how to run more effective tests. There are three major types of testing that game designers and developers do: technical testing, play testing, and user testing. Technical testing checks to see if a game works. When you're working with a digital game, technical testers make sure the game runs without crashing, can be completed, and all the necessary parts of the game are present and working as the designer expects them to. In a paper game, or a prototype, technical testing ensures the rules are complete, all the necessary game components are present and ready to be used, and the game can be completed as currently exists. It can be won, it can be lost. Technical testing is not about whether the game is fun and engaging, or well balanced between different sides and players. In technical testing, your tester, usually you, sometimes a friend who's a good editor, is just ensuring the game works as you expect it to. So when you're planning a playtest with new users or hoping to get some feedback on how your game works and you need to be confident that your game works as expected, that's the time to put your extra effort into reviewing the game and doing your technical testing. So playtesting. Playtesting is when you, the game developer, play your game critically. You think hard about your experience and therefore your player's experience. Hopefully you have a few reliable friends or family, or even better, a couple of additional developers to test along with you when you're talking about multiplayer games. As you make changes to your game, small and large, you test each change to understand how it affects the game. Much of your development time should be spent playtesting, making changes to your game, analyzing the effects of those changes, and then revising your game again. When you're doing this, you should ask yourself, do players have interesting actions to take every turn? Is it balanced? Does everyone in the game have a reasonable expectation of winning and losing? Is it engaging? The most dangerous question of all, of course, is it fun? Playtesting as a developer tool is your primary tool to ensure that your game is ready for players. Every time you revise your game, every time you iterate on it, you playtest that change, so you understand how your game has changed and you can confirm that it does what you want it to do. Playtesting is a constant repeated task. As long as you're developing your game, you need to be playtesting it regularly. And that brings us to user testing. User testing is also playtesting, except that you are asking people who are not you, people who did not develop your game and people who are not familiar with it, to play your game and give you honest feedback on how it works. User testing works best when you can test with your target audience, the people for whom you are making the game. So if you're making a game for 9 to 12-year-old kids, you'd like to get some 9 to 12-year-old kids in. If you're making it for people who like to play strategy games, you want to find some experienced strategy game players. And if you're making it for college students, go grab some of your local college students. But most importantly, you want to find someone else to play your game and give you honest feedback about it. Playtesting your game as a developer can really only tell you what you think about your game. But you aren't making your game just for you. You're making it to share with other people, and to do that, you need to know what happens to your game when other people play it. So questions to ask are, do players understand how to play the game? Are they challenged? Are they frustrated? Is it too easy? Is it too hard? Do they use all the rules you wrote or find loopholes you didn't expect? Only user testing can answer how your game performs with actual players. All three types of testing, technical, user, and developer playtesting, are vital to creating a good game. By their nature, it's a lot easier to do developer testing and technical testing. You, as the developer, can do it all yourself, and you can do it quickly and easily because you don't need to depend on someone else. Don't let that lead you to shirk user testing, because you need user testing just as much as the others. Before I go into talking about how you do user testing right, I want to make one thing clear. Poor user testing, imperfect user testing, is better than no user testing at all. Walking into a room with a half-finished game, dropping it on a pair of friendly people, and watching them play it will teach you more about your game and how people react to it than hours of your own time spent playing and replaying it. So don't worry about getting user testing right, or if your game isn't good enough, or if your users aren't perfect, or whatever other excuse you are giving yourself. Get out there, get someone else to play it. Also, the more you do user testing, the better you get at it. Just like with game design. The first game you design is bad, and the first user test you run feels like a disaster. Do it again anyway, because every time you do it, it gets better. With just a little bit of planning, you can run a better user test. Where I mean by better, I mean you get more of the information you need to improve your game. First, have a goal. What's the biggest problem you perceive in your game? What are you most worried about? The length of your game? The complexity of the game? The overall balance of your game? Decide what you want to learn about your game. Formulate a question. Will players understand how to play my game? Or are these two different abilities equally balanced? Secondly, what do your players need to know to test your game? Do you have a written set of rules? Or are you so early in the process that you're still explaining how to play the game and changing it just a bit each session? Both are okay. But user test will go faster and a little bit easier if you take the time to create a script explaining everything the players need to know to play the game. This helps you introduce the game to each group who plays it the same way. And finally, the hardest part of all, observe. Take notes. Once you've explained the rules and gotten them set up, get out of the way. Listen to everything they say, to what they are frustrated by what they understand, and especially to all the mistakes they make. Try not to get involved. Try to let them figure it out. Try to let them play around and figure out how to do it. Obviously, if your players get really frustrated or run into a roadblock that they just can't keep playing through, you should step in and help. But if they can solve their own problems, let them. Finally, you'll want to ask your players questions, and they'll want to share their opinions with you. Testers are usually full of ideas as to what you should do. But for the best testing experience, ask them why. Ask them for the problems they saw, ask them what frustrated them, ask them what they do or don't like. User testing is best for finding out what problems are, not a way of asking for solutions. Don't ask your players how to fix your game. That's your job as the designer. You may like your tester suggestions. You may even get good ideas from them. But always remember that you are the game designer and your users don't have your game's best interests in mind. They are thinking about what they want, and what they want may not make the game that you want to make.